Hey, what is up YouTube? This is Powerhouse here with another one of my videos, and today is going to be the first ever inaugural episode of Gaming Topics. Now, as I said before in my last video where I came to return, is that every episode we're going to focus on a different topic in gaming. It can cover stuff that's happening now to stuff in the past. So right now I just want to answer this question, and this is it's going to be a little bit tough for me because this is from a company that I have a lot of respect for and I've played a lot of their games, and that is Koei Tecmo. Now, the topic we're going to talk about is Koei Tecmo slipping? Now, before I get into their problems, I want to just talk about my connection with Koei Tecmo. I'm a huge fan of their games. I played the hell out of a lot of their titles on the PS2. I mean, damn. You have the Kessen series, 1, 2, and 3, which I loved. You have Dynasty Warriors, obviously, Samurai Warriors. A lot of their games, most of my favorite games, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, 10 was amazing, Nobunaga's Ambition. Most of my favorite games from them came from the PS2 era, but there was some that came out on the 360 era as well. Blade Storm, I enjoyed the hell out of it, and I also like its sequel too. I think they did a pretty good job on that, even though that's a more recent game. So now let's start off with their problems. Just lately, there has been a lack of quality when it comes to their biggest titles. For example, the biggest one that everyone is talking about is Dynasty Warriors 9. That was such an atrocity in many ways. When you make a Dynasty Warriors game, or if you make a game that's been a long-running franchise, you have to understand that when you make drastic decisions, they gotta freaking pay off. They created an open world which was atrocious. The way it was implemented was awful. You know, I can sit here and explain just how bad Dynasty Warriors 9 is, but if you look on Steam and see all the negative reviews, and I'd recommend that you guys check out the Jimquisition. If you look at his review for Dynasty Warriors 9, he pretty much freaking annihilates that game. You gotta watch it. It's hilarious, very entertaining. Then you have Nobunaga's Ambition. Now, the last Nobunaga's Ambition, the one that I reviewed, was Sphere of Influence, which I thought was a pretty good game, and many people did. Then the sequel / expansion pack, standalone game for it, Nobunaga's Ambition Ascension, I enjoyed it, but it was a noticeable step down in terms of quality, the amount of bugs that still exist, that were there from the launch that still exist. It really does take a nosedive from the last game, and also the recent game that was just released. Now, I haven't played it. It's called Nobunaga's Ambition Taishi, but just from the reviews that I've been reading, again, very negative. So obviously, if Sphere of Influence was able to get very positive, or at least mostly positive reviews on Steam, then they have definitely dropped the ball if they're getting mostly negative reviews now. Romance of the Three Kingdoms, again, like I said before, one of my favorite franchises. I love the hell out of that game. Romance of the Three Kingdoms 10 is probably not only my favorite in the series, but probably one of my favorite games for the PS2. I played the hell out of it. I've beaten it so many times as a leader, as an officer. It's just amazing. Now, overall, I gave a fairly positive review to Romance of the Three Kingdoms 13, but I will admit it definitely did suffer and had a lot of things that were lacking from the previous games, specifically the officer play. I felt like it wasn't up to snuff compared to Romance of the Three Kingdoms 10, 7, and 8. But they did improve upon this with the expansion pack, the power-up kit, Fame and Strategy, I believe it's called, and it was pretty good. I enjoyed it for what it is, but stuff like that should have been in the base game. I mean, they improved a lot of mechanics, not only for the officer play, but also for the combat, added a lot more strategic depth to it, and it was a lot of fun playing as Sun Shang-Tsung and Zhou Yu in my recent campaigns, but stuff like that really needs to be from the base game to really have a strong presence. And that kind of leads into their DLC policy, and I gotta be honest, they have one of the worst DLC policies out of all these companies. I mean, if you just look at any of their games and see all the list of DLCs, it's insane, especially for Dynasty Warriors 8 Complete Edition. For a Complete Edition, just like the Jimquisition mentioned, how the hell do you still have DLC for a supposed Complete Edition? It's not even complete at that point. It's more like half-baked or half-done. But the worst offender of this has to be Dead or Alive Last Round. Just look at this right now. This is atrocious. Like, every freaking character is worth a ridiculous amount of money. Just look how much it freaking costs for total DLC. That is insane. If I had that money, if I just used that and bought, I can buy a ton of games on sale for Steam, and I'm paying all this for characters and costumes, which really should be valued much less. Talk about a free-to-play game. More like I gotta pay to freaking play to begin with, or to use any freaking character that I want. But not only do they have bad DLC, they also have bad pricing, especially on Steam. Most of their prices just don't decrease. A lot of their games stay at $60, even though they really should be at like 30 or 40. They never adjust their prices. They always stay at that amount. I'm assuming because since Koei Tecmo is used to selling at a niche market, they can't afford to drop it. But I don't know, I feel like it's just a lot of laziness and just being cheap on their part just to maximize profits. And I really don't like that. I wish they would just lower the prices. I mean, freaking heck, freaking, you know, Injustice 2, I was able to get for like, you know, 35 just recently because it was on sale. But heck, I can't even buy Nobunaga's Ambition. It's still at like $60 at Taishi at like $60. It's never on sale. And the last thing I want to say about them negatively is their PC ports. They've dropped the ball on them. It's really just been terrible. The two games I'm talking about in particular are Ark Toukiden Kiwami. Now, I did review this as well, and I did enjoy it for what it is, but it just kept crashing, a bunch of glitches. It wasn't a very playable game on PC. It would just randomly crash, and I could never really figure out what I'm doing exactly. So I have to kind of like troubleshoot and find out myself. It just ruins the experience. I don't care what anyone says. You can have one of the greatest games of all time, but if it's riddled with bugs and glitches and makes the game unplayable, nobody's gonna want to play it because they can't freaking play it. And also Samurai Warriors 4-2. While it wasn't terrible necessarily, it was lackluster. The frame rate just wasn't consistent. It would always just go out of control. I noticed this after I reviewed the game, but on longer play sessions, it really starts to glitch out, especially if you play the I think it was called the castle mode or whatever, where you have to go up that castle. You have to like ascend or actually descend. You had to go up the castle. It was like one of the challenge modes. You had to go up like to level 100 or whatever. If you go for like over like 20-30 levels, it would start like you had a higher chance of it crashing than if you just did like 10 levels or 5 levels. So it was frustrating when I would just go on long journeys to see, okay, how far can I go, and then it would crash. I'd lose all my progress. That was infuriating. Now, I don't want to just say this is all negative and Koei Tecmo is terrible. There actually are some good things, and like I said in this video, we're gonna take the positive with the negatives. So what they've been doing with Nintendo has been fantastic. Their games have been getting good reviews, positive reviews, and have been selling well. Specifically, I'm talking about Hyrule Warriors and Fire Emblem Warriors. Both of these games, I got a cousin who played both of these games. He's enjoyed both of them. Hyrule Warriors, I think he's put in like, you know, a few hundred hours in that. The DLC, they had a good amount of DLC, you know, very favorable and actually pretty well priced DLC that sold pretty well. But most of this, I have to say, I feel like it's because Nintendo is watching over this. Nintendo is very protective with its IPs. So if they give it to a company to work on it, they're going to make sure it's one of the best games. It's going to meet up to their standards. I mean, they gave Smash Bros to Bandai Namco to develop, and look at that game. That game turned out amazing, and it's because they just make sure that you know, they have a high level of quality. That's the thing what makes Nintendo so special, is they make sure that if they sell a game using their IPs, it's going to be a good game. And also two other games that were produced by themselves. One of them was Neo, which a lot of people thought it was just going to be like a weak Dark Souls clone. But I've played it and I enjoyed it. I'm not going to say it's the greatest game of all time, but it's definitely very solid. And I looked at who developed it specifically, and it was Team Ninja. Now, Team Ninja has also worked on Dead or Alive, and they've also worked on the Ninja Gaiden games. So they obviously have some experience. So they know what they're doing. and Toukiden 2. Now Toukiden 1, the PC port of that was, like I said, it was bad. But for Toukiden 2, the PC port is fantastic. Everything's been working well. The frame rate's at 60 frames per second. It looks great. It's playable. I haven't had any glitches. And I never really knew that I wanted a open world Monster Hunter game until I played Toukiden 2. And it was just, it was a lot of fun. I love the grappling hook, the monsters you can face just running out in the world. It was a good time. So in conclusion, is Koei Tecmo slipping? I would say just a little bit in terms of the quality of their games, but there are some, there are some positive notes to be taken away from it. Like I said, their games with Nintendo, and and Neo was pretty good, and I really enjoyed Toukiden 2. Now, what I believe they need to do is to cut back on their DLC policy and really just put more in their games in terms of quality content, polishing the games, not making them so buggy. Invest more money, invest more time into polishing, really quality control. That will definitely help Koei Tecmo in the long run, and a lot of people will begin to trust them as a developer and as a publisher. Until that happens, a lot of people are going to be falling away. And Koei Tecmo, they're not one of the biggest companies. They don't have the hugest audience, the biggest audience. They're not like EA. They can piss off half of them and the other half will still buy. Or they can piss off all of them and still get 80% of them to come back. The Dynasty Warriors franchise, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Nobunaga's Ambition series in particular, they sell well, but they don't sell like, I don't think, from what I've said, they don't sell like millions and millions and millions. They're not like huge successful hits. So they got to make sure that these franchises, they do the best they can with them. And then they do have some heavy hitters, like I said, with Neo. They got a sequel coming up to that, and people are pretty hyped for that. So if they can, if they can improve upon Neo and really deliver with a solid sequel, I would say they'd be right back on track. And then they're able to, say, we apologize, we screwed up, and probably make a Dynasty Warriors 10 that's just much better. And I think life will be really good for them. I would be, more than happy to see what they do. And also stop playing around. You gotta make a Kessen 4. I mean, like, come on now. Kessen is freaking awesome. You gotta make a 4th game. But anyways, this was the first episode of Gaming Topics. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please leave your comments below on things you would like me to cover in future episodes. We're just gonna do this every Wednesday. I'm just gonna come here, rant, let you know what's good, how I feel about certain topics. And like I said, hope you enjoyed it. This is Powerhouse, signing off.